Hujambo community, and welcome, Aquava, to Espresso Talk Today, the podcast show where we confront the chaos of living Black in predominantly white spaces. I'm your host, Alma Robin, and I am so excited to continue our journey into our theme of Black exploration as Black empowerment. I want to start with a story about a modern day explorer. And yes, she is Black, and yes, she is a woman. Then, after the story, we'll go straight to the rest of the show. But I know that you all will be so inspired by this story. That's why I just wanted to open the show with it. I am having my cardamom coffee today. That's a change. It is, but change is good. I'm having my cardamom coffee today and getting comfortable while I tell you the story of Sylvia Earle, the woman who explored the depths of our oceans. Sylvia Earle, born in 1935, is one of the world's most renowned oceanographers, marine biologists, and explorers. Known as her deepness for her extraordinary work in deep-sea exploration, Sylvia Earle has dedicated her life to studying and protecting the world's oceans. Her groundbreaking achievements have not only expanded our understanding of marine ecosystems, but also have reshaped our awareness of the critical role oceans play in the health of our planet. But I get ahead of myself. Let me start at the beginning. Sylvia Earle's love for the ocean began early in life. Raised along the coasts of New Jersey and Florida, so on the eastern seaboard of the United States, she spent much of her childhood exploring marine life in the shallow waters near her home. This fascination with the sea eventually led to her to pursue a degree in marine biology, where she quickly made a name for herself as a pioneering researcher. In 1979, Sylvia Earle set a world record, by diving 1,250 feet below the ocean's surface in a pressurized suit off the coast of Hawaii. This solo dive remains the deepest untethered dive made by a woman. But Sylvia Earle's explorations didn't stop there. Oh no. She has logged more than 7,000 hours underwater, using submersibles and scuba equipment to conduct research in some of the world's most remote and inaccessible marine environments. Sylvia Earle's work has contributed greatly to our understanding of the importance of marine biodiversity. You see, it's interesting how exploration can help everyone. In the 1990s, she served as the chief scientist at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the NOAA, the first woman to hold that position. She has also been a vocal advocate for the protection of the oceans, arguing that without healthy marine ecosystems, the Earth's environmental stability is at risk. Now, we've just seen that to be true. That's right. She was way ahead of her time. She launched the Mission Blue Project, an initiative to establish hope spots. Yes, that's right. Hope spots, that's in quotations, which are protected areas in the ocean where biodiversity can thrive, helping to safeguard the future of marine ecosystems. Dr. Sylvia Earle's work combines exploration with conservation. She has written several books and appeared in numerous documentaries to raise public awareness about the need to protect our oceans. And even today, in her late 80s, that's right, in her late 80s, Dr. Sylvia Earle remains an active explorer, continuing to advocate for the oceans and the importance of preserving them for future generations. Sylvia Earle's story shows us that exploration isn't just about traveling to uncharted lands. Nothing, not to put that down, but it's not only about that. But it's also about understanding and protecting the most vital ecosystems on our planet. Her legacy reminds us of the power of curiosity, passion, and the need for environmental stewardship in this rapidly changing world. Wow. That's the end of this story, but Dr. Earle's contributions and explorations are continuing to this day. What did you think? I told you you're going to be inspired. That's right. And her work does continue today. And, well, speaking of this day, today's episode is about exploration, but it's more than discovering new lands or whatever else. It's about breaking barriers, pushing beyond the limits society imposes, and redefining what's possible. And Dr. Earle's story shows that. It really does. But for centuries, Black explorers and adventurers have been doing exactly that. But of course, we know their stories have been hidden from us. And this is what I call, and I've been calling for the past few episodes, the racial chaos of silence, a form of racism that quietly erases Black achievements, keeping us from learning about these extraordinary explorers and a lot of other things too. This silence promotes white supremacy by distorting the historical record, making it seem as though exploration and discovery were solely the domain of white people. That's right. But we were right there at the forefront, where we always are. In my previous episode, we started to break that silence, and we're going to be continuing to do that today. These Black explorers that we're going to talk about today are ordinary people who faced and continue to face extraordinary challenges, and they show us that the only limits that truly exist are the ones that we choose to accept. So let's dive into their stories and claim their rightful place in history. But before we make that dive into today's topic, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and share this podcast with your fam, your friends, your community, everyone in your tribe. And let's spread awareness and build this movement and break this silence together. Now, grab that espresso or tea. Tea drinkers are welcome here too, and close that door behind you. We're going to get deep and we're going to get real, and I hope that y'all are ready for this. Aquaba back, my dear brothers and sisters and gender neutral and gender nonconforming folks. I am so glad that we are all here together because we have a lot to learn and a lot to discuss. And so we're going to go right into this because exploration doesn't wait. Exploration actually takes many different forms. Now, in school, we may have learned that exploration was, getting into a ship in the 1400s and going off someplace. Exploration is a whole lot more than that. And Black exploration, well, you're going to see when after you hear these stories that are coming up, that Black exploration is expansive. It pushes the limits. It's demanding. It's inspirational, and it's innovative. And it can happen anytime and anywhere, against anyone, and against any challenges. I can't wait to dive into this. Let's do it. Let's start with Misty Copeland. Wow, did you think we were going to start with Misty Copeland as an explorer? I told you, we are pushing the limits. Misty Copeland was the first African-American principal dancer for the American Ballet Theater. Misty broke through the predominantly white world of ballet, showing that exploration happens not just in geography, but also in culture and, wait for it, representation too. Her journey was far from easy. She faced racism, injury, financial struggles, but she redefined what a ballerina could look like, and she continues to inspire young Black dancers. I mean, I am not a young Black dancer, but I tell you, her story totally inspires me. And Misty Copeland's story reminds us that exploration is about redefining spaces where we've been historically excluded and showing the world that we belong, and actually, that we can dominate the space. That's right. By the way, I'm going to mention a few other names, but don't bother about writing all of this down. Sit back and listen, because all these names are on my website at espressotalktoday.com in the blog section. So just listen to the stories and just get comfortable and just feel the inspiration. I promise you it is there. Okay, next there is Bessie Coleman, the first Black woman and Native American to earn a pilot's license. In 1921, Bessie Coleman traveled to France because American flight schools wouldn't accept her in any school because she was Black and because she's a woman. And despite poverty and barriers, Bessie Coleman pursued her dreams and paved the way for future generations of Black aviators. Everywhere she went, she was turned away. But what did she do? She decided to go to France, and the French, they let her in. But of course, she had to know French, and she learned to speak the French language. That's right, so that she could go to school. So she taught herself. Now, that is tenacity. That's what explorers do. And her story reminds us that exploration is also about opening doors, even when the world tells us that they are closed. And how many times do we hear that? In modern day exploration, we have Mae Jemison, the first African American woman to travel into space, and this happened in 1992. She reminds us that space, we're talking, space, outer space, is not out of our reach. It's not beyond our reach. But for too long, the racial chaos of silence has erased her contribution and the contributions of other, space explorers and, astronauts from our collective memory. Mae Jemison's story reminds us that exploration is about breaking through the final frontier and proving that there are no limits to where we can go. This is beginning to sound like a Star Trek thing, right? To go where no one has ever gone before. Well, that's what Mae Jemison did, and others are doing too. Don't let them write us out of the story as much as they want to. Now, the same can be said for historical explorers like William Shepherd. William Shepherd journeyed deep into the Congo and documented the atrocities of Belgian colonizers. Oh, yeah, and he had a lot to do. William Shepherd was not just an explorer, he was a truth teller, and he exposed the injustices of colonialism. And we're talking, the Belgian colonizers under King Leopold II, left more than 10 million Congolese dead. So he did some important work, William Shepherd did. And his story is one of many that have been hidden from us and obscured by a history that promotes white supremacy by silencing Black voices and, hiding Black achievements and contributions. William Shepherd's story does remind us, that exploration is about uncovering truth and using discovery to fight injustice even when the world seeks to hide it. And that's right, and that's what he did. But let's never forget George Washington Carver. I'm sure that name is familiar to you. I really hope it is. But he was an agricultural scientist and explorer of the natural world. His contributions revolutionized farming in the South, especially for Black farmers. Yet his work is often minimized or simplified in history books. I mean, he did some amazing things with the peanut, but he did a lot of other amazing things too. But when we're not controlling the narrative, then white supremacists control what's taught. And they have worked systematically to minimize and simplify Dr. Carver's work. And this, too, is the racial chaos of silence, erasing the full extent of his brilliance. But George Washington Carver's story reminds us that exploration is about transforming the world around us, turning innovation into empowerment for our communities. We're going to end this segment by discussing a modern-day explorer, Vanessa O'Brien, who became the first woman to summit Mount Everest and reach the Mariana Trench. Both of those. Yes, she went high and she went low. And those are challenging the limits of physical exploration. That's right. She went to she summited Mount Everest and she reached the Mariana Trench. Wow. So she wasn't limited to one space. And in fact, she really did push the limits of physical exploration. Vanessa O'Brien's story reminds us that exploration is about pushing beyond the world's highest and lowest limits, proving that boundaries are meant to be surpassed. But how many of us know her name? How many of us know that Black women are breaking barriers in some of the most extreme environments on the planet? The racial chaos of silence hides these stories, and by doing so, it limits what we believe is possible for ourselves. That is over now. I think this is a good time for a breather break. That's right. There's been a lot of information, a lot to think about, a lot of inspiration, but everybody needs a little break. So why don't we take a break to breathe, to have a sip of coffee or water or whatever, just to process some of this information. This will last for 1 minute, and then we're going to get right back to it. I look forward to seeing you. And thanks for staying with me. Welcome back, fam. And thanks for staying in the building with me, because we got a lot more to discuss. And yeah, it's going to get even more exciting. And I think there are going to be some surprises here for you too. But first, I want to just repeat that this silence that we're discussing, the racial chaos of silence, is not accidental. It is a tool of white supremacy, keeping us from knowing the full scope of Black achievement, keeping everyone from knowing that. But we can break it by reclaiming these stories, celebrating these explorers, and telling the truth about our contributions. They wouldn't have to work so hard to keep us down if we weren't so great. But they work very hard at it. And to me, that just really shows our greatness, because they're still not able to keep us down. Well, let's get right back into exploration, because I think this one's going to be a surprise. Because exploration also happens in the arts. What? That's right. This time, it's music. Think of Jimi Hendrix, who redefined rock. Or Miles Davis, who explored and created new styles like jazz fusion. These musicians weren't just playing. They were exploring new sounds and breaking the boundaries of what music could be. But even in the music world, the racial chaos of silence downplays how much Black artists have contributed to nearly every genre we know today. That's right. Jimi Hendrix and Miles Davis remind us that exploration is about breaking all kinds of boundaries. In their case, musical boundaries, by redefining sound and creating new artistic landscapes. And they push the limits of creativity and expression. And I know that you know other artists and musicians who have done the same. You know, these explorers, whether they were flying planes or scaling mountains or diving in the ocean, gracing the ballet stage, making music, flying, or creating new musical styles, were not superheroes. You know, they didn't wake up wearing a cape. You know, they were ordinary people who faced extraordinary challenges and reshaped what was possible. And because they did that, they reshaped what was possible. It worked for them, and it works for us. The racial chaos of silence, though, has kept us from fully knowing their contributions. But now that we know, we can tell these incredible stories ourselves. But these are just a few of the stories of Black explorers who have changed the world, and their legacy is far, far from isolated. Stories of Black exploration are everywhere. Sometimes they're in history books, not like they should be, but they could be. And sometimes they're right in front of us, in our own families, in our own communities, and even, wait for it, within ourselves. Exploration isn't reserved for those in distant lands or in outer space or with PhDs or, some other kind of superpower. It's about breaking barriers, pushing the boundaries, and creating new possibilities. That journey of exploration is within you too. That's right. Your story is part of this legacy. And I want to emphasize, remember, exploration is powerful and life-changing. These explorers doubted their limits. They did. They doubted their limits. And so can you. Whatever challenges you're facing, whether it's racism, misogyny, or self-doubt, exploration is within you. It's within all of us. You can push through those boundaries and, like these incredible explorers, you can make history. Remember, doubt your limits and explore new horizons. And now I really do want to hear from you. What does exploration mean to you? I know I'm pushing the boundaries of exploration, and I'm going to keep doing it. Is exploration about physical discovery, or is it about breaking through societal barriers placed on us? I think it's both, but I want to know what you think. And I'll be exploring this question in the next episode, so stay tuned. But until then, keep exploring and remember, if you must doubt something, doubt your limits. So thank you, Asante Sana, for joining me on this episode of Espresso Talk Today. I hope that you've been inspired by these stories of these extraordinary Black explorers and adventurers. And by the way, as I said, you can find these stories in the blog section of my website on Espresso Talk Today at espressotalktoday.com. And remember, the racial chaos of silence can no longer keep these stories hidden. It's done it for a long time, no more. It's time for us to reclaim them and share them with the world. And my call to action for you today is this: share these stories, share your story, and remember, there is an explorer in you too. So I have now finished my espresso, my cardamom espresso. That's right. And this was an awful lot of information, I know, a wonderful lot of information. How about if I put it that way? But I promise you that these stories that I shared are only the very tip of the iceberg when it comes to Black explorers and Black exploration. It's also just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to how far white supremacists will go to deny and destroy our history, our stories, and our contributions. They would deny our very presence if they could. Now, Asante Sana for joining me. And if you found this episode meaningful, and I really hope you did, please share it with your friends and family and your community, everyone around you. You can also share your thoughts, stories, and adventures and explorations in the comments section wherever you listen to Espresso Talk Today, or you can personally, direct message me on Instagram at Ama Robin L. That's AMA _ Robin, ROBIN _ the letter L. You might just want to come on the show and share, your stories directly with the audience. No pressure though, but that would be very welcome. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention my Believe Black People hashtag, presenting our history of Black explorers and Black exploration, and your stories in exploration uplift and strengthens all of us. This is how we can hashtag Believe Black People. And telling the truth about how our history has been systematically denied is another way that we can encourage people to hashtag Believe Black People. Please go to the Believe Black People page on Instagram and get to know me there too. And any comment you send, send it with the hashtag Believe Black People, because this is what it's all about. It's about being believed, finally. This, once again, you can do this on Instagram at Ama Robin L. I'm Ama Robin for Espresso Talk Today, reminding you that if you must doubt something, doubt your limits. And remember now more than ever, strength, soul, and reparations. Ashe, fam.